Hi, this is Gurasis Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. So, storytelling is a powerful tool that transcends generations and cultures, capturing the essence of our experiences and preserving them for future generations. It allows us to connect with one another on a deeply personal level, sharing our joys, sorrows, and everything in between. And in today's episode of My Thick Accent, I'm thrilled to introduce someone whose journey and mission embodies this transformative power of storytelling. Our guest today is the founder of Memory Bloom, a venture dedicated to crafting clarity and legacies through both corporate writing and personal stories. Born in Pakistan and moving to Canada at the age of 8, she has spent her life in Toronto, where she has seamlessly blended her extensive corporate experience with a passion for personal storytelling. Her professional journey is nothing short of remarkable. With over 2 decades of experience in Canada's leading financial institutions, including RBC, TD Bank, CIBC, and Bank of Montreal, she has honed her skills in building strong business operations. But it was her unexpected transition from the corporate world to discovering her passion for writing that led to the creation of Memory Bloom. Join me as we delve into her formative years, her experiences growing up, and how she leveraged her corporate background to build Memory Bloom. We will explore her fascinating journey, her commitment to storytelling, and the impactful work she's doing to help others immortalize their memories. Please welcome Doreen.
Thank you so much, Gurasis. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I've been looking forward to you and me, doing this and sharing our stories with everyone who watches your podcast. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Very excited for this conversation. So, Doreen, this episode is part of the season 2 of the podcast. And where I'm trying to turn up the fun factor a little bit because why not? So, I'm going to start with some fun questions. Okay.
Okay.
So, the first question is, what's your go to breakfast?
Oh wow. Well, what I would like to eat and what I end up eating are two different things. Always keeping healthy choices in mind. But
Sure.
usually my healthy breakfast consists of oatmeal with some berries and, peanut butter and things like that. So, I mean, you can make it taste good, so it's not too bad.
Okay. And is that something you've started eating like recently or from a long time?
No, I've been trying to do this for a while now. Sometimes when I get bored, I'll throw in some toast and eggs and just to keep things a little bit different. But yeah, it's been part of my routine now.
Okay, okay. I'll share something else. So I'm actually a heavy consumer of oats. I think I
Oops.
eat oatmeal every day. I'm eating it from past 3 years almost. I think more than 3 years, in fact.
Oh,
Like every
okay.
day, I just basically I prepare like a full bunch, 3 4 jars together, which is like the
Mhm.
overnight oats. I prepare them and I eat them like every day. And at some point, I feel like my mother, whenever she calls me and she asks me what you have had, I said oatmeal. She would be like, you have to stop eating them. You can't consume them every day.
If you like it,
Yeah.
then that's good.
Yeah, I've tried like bunch of different flavors now. The banana ones and the berries one and various other
Right.
kinds. I love experimenting with those. Okay. So next is share a favorite song or a dialogue or a movie and tell us why it's significant to you.
A song or a movie? Oh, wow. I wasn't prepared for that. My taste in movies span very like different genres. I like
Okay.
the romance movies, and then I also like
Hmm.
the Viking movies. So I love period pieces, like even things like Bridgerton, or those kind
Hmm.
of old English kind of movies. So it's kind of
Yeah.
varied. A song, nothing comes to mind. You kind of caught me off guard. It depends on my mood, I would say. It depends on
Hmm.
my mood in terms of what type of music that I like. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, the only thing that I can think of that comes to mind is a quote that
Hmm.
stays with me. This quote is something that I read in a book, and it just changed things for me. And it made me realize that we have to do certain things in our lives, otherwise it'll never happen. And the quote
Mm,
is, you cannot swim across the lake with one foot on the shore.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. And that's one of the reasons why I dove headfirst into what I'm trying to do with my business is
Hmm.
when I was kind of going through my corporate career, I was trying to do it part time, trying to do it here and there, but it doesn't work. You can't give 100% to two things. So I
Yes.
decided to lift my other foot off the shore and just dive into the water and keep swimming. That's where I am right now.
I love that. I love that code. I would love to dive deeper into that, but maybe later in the podcast for sure.
Sure.
You mentioned like songs. I mean, you mentioned that you don't have any particular song in your mind, but do you usually listen to just like Canadian English music, so to say, or you also
Yes.
listen to some Pakistani, maybe Urdu or
No,
Hindi,
no, no. It's
anything?
just English music. And just to
Okay.
clear things up, I was born in Bahrain. So I was born there for the first few years of my life. I don't remember it all, but then
Okay.
moved to Karachi, Pakistan. That's where my grandparents lived. And lived
Hmm.
there for a couple of years, then moved to Canada. So I kind of only resonate with Canada. This is where I spend most of my life. So
Hmm.
I consider myself part of the fabric of Canada for sure.
Okay. And what would you say is your mother tongue then?
It's English. Yes, even
English only.
though
Okay.
even though my family comes from a place called Goa, which is in India, our
Hmm.
mother tongue is English. So
Okay.
we do speak another language too, but English is primary.
Okay. So I feel like the next question wouldn't be that valid because the question is usually I ask my guests to teach us a phrase in their mother tongue and what does it mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't speak any other language. I wish I did. I kind of grew
Okay.
up here as a child, so English is all I speak, and because we speak English just in the home, um, I never got to explore other languages. I do regret not pursuing French further in high
Hmm.
school. When you go into high school in Canada, you have to choose one language at least, in grade 9
Hmm.
and grade
Yeah.
10. So I chose French, but then dropped it afterwards from grade 11 onwards. But I regret that because today I wish I were bilingual, but I have started doing Duolingo.
Okay.
I'm trying to brush up on my French.
Okay. So next is if you could teleport to any particular place, where would you go and what would you do?
Oh, wow. I've done a lot of travel in the world and
Hmm.
I love to travel. I love beaches only because living here in Canada, it's winter for so many months of the year and it's extreme cold weather. So I
Hmm.
love going to warm places. I love,
Yeah.
the ocean and the sandy beaches. One of the places that I loved and I would love to go back to because I just kind of connected with it and I felt it was so rich in history and warmth in the people, and that is Italy. I just love that part of the
Hmm.
world, like Italy and Spain and Portugal. I would definitely go back there because it just is so beautiful and so peaceful and calm.
So next I would like to take you down the memory lane a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your formative years and also if you can tell briefly about your parents' immigration as well.
I don't remember much because I came to Canada when I was very young. I think I was about 9 years old. I have very few memories of being in Karachi, mainly of just going to school and coming back and being in our family home with my grandparents.
Hmm.
Then, when my family decided to immigrate to Canada, um, I don't remember even the journey that much. It was just starting here and, going to a new school. And that was scary.
Hmm.
When I think back to that time, I was nervous. I was scared. I didn't know where I was. All I knew was I was in a different country, away from people who I knew, and I had to start in a new school where I didn't even know what to expect. But
Hmm.
the good thing for me, or the easy part for me, was the language. I didn't have to learn a different language to
Hmm.
get around. But I guess my accent is different, so that is something that I did have to overcome. And
Okay.
it's the name of your podcast, my thick
Of
accent.
course.
And
Yeah.
you know what? We need to wear that as a crown. We need
A
to
hundred
wear
percent. Yeah.
our accent like this is who we are. We're different, but it's not bad. It's different, but it's good. And we just have to learn to listen, open our ears and listen. So,
Hmm.
like anything else, and I think everybody, no matter where, even if you were born in Canada, you're going to face obstacles when you enter a situation where there's a group of different people.
Hmm.
Even if you are Canadian, you are going to be looked at differently if you sound different, if you wear your hair different, if you dress
Yeah,
different, if you wear glasses, or if you have crooked teeth, you're going
sure.
to be singled out as being different.
Yeah.
And it could be your accent, or it could be the way you look and the way, anything else. So I would tell people that don't look at it as a crutch, because you may have a different accent or you speak a different language, but so is everybody else different. So just be yourself and be happy with who you are.
100%. I think I always say that also, that it's time we should stop feeling embarrassed about it and just own it, because
Own
this
it.
is what it is. And it's
Exactly.
so easy to really accept and just live your life that way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to go back again, your childhood a little bit. Obviously, like when you come here, if you have recollection of any like initial impressions of Canada, or maybe like the first time you experienced like a significant, maybe like a cultural shift, so to say.
As kids, we were told, oh, we're going to Canada and it's going to be so exciting. And I
Hmm.
thought, oh, what is this place, Canada? Like, why is it different? What is it about Canada that I'm going to like? I don't have any friends there. I don't know anybody there. But
Yeah.
the picture that was painted for me is like, this is going to be an amazing life. It's
Hmm.
going to be an amazing place to be. So you automatically think that everything is going to be easy because it's so amazing, but really
Hmm.
it's challenging, like everything else in life. Whether you are entering a new school or a new job for the first time,
Hmm.
you get nervous and you don't
Yeah.
know if you'll fit in. You don't know if you will do well. You don't know if you will succeed. But as a child, you don't really have a lot of those thoughts because you're just kind of doing what your parents tell you to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you'll be fine, just go to school, and learn your schoolwork and be the best student that you can be, and
Hmm.
everything else is secondary. So it's always that educational part that comes first, that you have to be a great student.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember, is just being told that you have to go to school and that you cannot say no. So even if you were scared, even if you were crying,
Hmm.
it's something that you just have to overcome. And I think in some respects, that's maybe a good thing, because in life, as you go through life, there's no certainty about anything. And
Yeah.
you learn that if you just do it, no matter what, sometimes it could be uncomfortable, sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's hard, but you will get through it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the biggest learning is when you look back and you think, I didn't die. I
Yeah.
it didn't hurt so much. In fact, I'm better off today because I went through all of those challenges.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think this is an ongoing discussion on the podcast, that all these ups and downs and experiences actually build that character, and it
Mhm.
prepares you for the things that you will be doing in the coming years of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then it comes time for us to teach our children.
Hmm.
It's like, what advice do you give your children? It's like, don't worry, everything will be fine. You're starting a
Hmm.
new school. Don't worry, everything will be fine. But
Hmm.
you have to go through it yourself and you have to realize, hey, wait a minute, it is fine. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So a
Of
lot of
course.
the fears, we kind of build up in our own mind as to what is it going to be like, but we get
Hmm.
over it.
Yeah. Did you have any like a dream career when you were like younger, or maybe like as a child you wanted to become something? What did you have any recollection of that?
No, you know what? I never knew what I wanted to do. Never. Even when
Okay.
I graduated high school, a lot of
Hmm.
my friends were looking at colleges and universities and what they wanted to do. I felt lost. Like I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And based on my family situation at the time when I graduated high school, I really didn't have the luxury of pursuing post secondary education at that
Okay.
time. I had to get a job to support my family, you know?
Hmm.
So at the age of 17, I got a full time job to help,
Okay.
my family with the bills and the mortgage and
Hmm.
things like that. And then I just kept going from there. I
Hmm.
just ended up getting a job an entry level job at a stockbroker, and then just
Okay.
work my way up from there. Then you just kind of go with the flow and see what's next.
Hmm. And did you have any go-to person at that time, maybe at that naive age, or were there like any key mentors in your life at that time?
No, no, I was just too young at the time. All I had was my
Hmm.
close circle of friends, but it was mainly just my immediate family. My parents who kind of said, "No, this is what you have to do, and you have to follow this path." I
Hmm.
really did not have any choice in the matter.
Okay.
So in some respects, when I look back, I don't know how it would have been if I had a choice. I
Hmm.
don't know where I would be today, but I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and maybe where I am today with Memory Bloom is how it was supposed to be.
Hmm. But what would you say was, Doreen, like that pivotal moment in your formative years, Let's just say like before your 20s, what was that moment that really like basically shifted your mindset a little bit?
Hmm, that's a tough question. You kind of go with the flow. You go through high school and you come out of high school, and then you're like, what do I do? How do I?
What about that job? Did that
The,
sort of change your
the
perspective on
job,
things a little bit?
actually, it did because working at that first job was an eye opener. Going
Hmm.
from school, because my parents said, you have to go to school and now you have to go and get a job.
Yeah.
Being in school is very formalized, it's restrictive. There's a path you follow. You cannot fall off that path, otherwise, you
Yeah.
fail.
Hmm.
When you enter into the job world, things are different. And the one thing that was really eye opening for me is, everybody kind of was different. They had different skills, they had different strengths, they had different personalities, and they were all
Hmm.
working because the company had said, okay, this is your job, this is what you have to do to be successful. And I realized then that this was a competitive environment, that in order for me to
Hmm.
excel, in order for me to succeed, moving up was what you had to do, because everybody was trying to move up.
Hmm.
And you kind of get caught up in this movement of,
Hmm.
you have to be the best employee, you have to go above and beyond, but it was also a
Hmm.
fun environment because, when you have coworkers that are fun to be with, and at that time in that job, there were a lot of young people where I worked. So it was more of, hey, let's go hang out after work. Let's go out for dinner. Let's go out for a movie. Let's go out
Hmm.
dancing or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. So it became a very social aspect of my life, more so than how it was at home, because at home it was more restrictive. You have to go to school, you have to do
Hmm.
your homework, you have to do your housework, and that's it. You can't go out, you can't have fun.
Hmm.
So being in that work environment was an eye opener for me, because I got to realize that, hey, there's more to life than just studying, right?
Hmm.
And then you got to know about people's travel when they went away on holidays. And that kind of opened up other doors for you too, that you never ever considered. Like, hey, I can fly to Jamaica. I could go to Europe. I can go to all these
Yeah.
places. And it's
Hmm.
doable, right? When you see other people around you doing it, you kind of get caught up in that excitement and do it as well.
Hmm. Would you say that also helped you to evolve your sense of identity from the formative years to that up until the job?
Like in what way? Like what? Can you give me an example?
Like you just mentioned that within your household the dynamic was very restrictive and
Mhm.
different, right? You had like a certain path to follow, but then
Yes,
to the point of outside you are kind of assimilating into a complete different culture.
right.
People from all around the world are working with you, so did that anyway influenced your worldview?
Absolutely, absolutely. I realized I could be more. I realized that there's so much more to explore. There's places you can go, there's courses you can take,
Hmm.
there's other interests to be had. You can join a sports group after work. And those are things that I started to explore, is joining other groups
Hmm.
and hanging out with different people, and you
Hmm.
grow. And it's not until other people pointed out to me and said, hey, Doreen, you're really good at this, or you should do this because it's really good for you. And then
Hmm.
it started to spark my imagination and think, Wow, I never thought about that before. Because coming
Mm,
from the background and the culture that, we come from in the East,
hmm.
you pretty much do what you're told to do.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to divert from the path that your family has set for you. you
Mm,
know their
mm,
intention is, you go to school, and then when you graduate, then you get married, you settle down and have children, and that's the life.
yeah.
That's the pattern for most people out in the East. It's
Hmm.
maybe it's changing now because the world is evolving,
Yeah.
and as big as the world is, it's just that small as well. And also,
Hmm.
when you watch movies, your mind is open to so many different cultures, and what you can and cannot do. So
Hmm.
that kind of opens up a different world for you too. So when
Hmm.
people started to recognize in me what I didn't even recognize in myself, that
Yeah.
was life changing for me as well.
Hmm.
Having some great managers who drew me out of my shell and said,
Mm.
Doreen, you're really good at this. You should explore this further. And
Wow.
I was like, I remember being so surprised that somebody thought I was good at something,
Mm.
and that kind of kept pushing me forward.
Yeah. I think you had that experience. That's why somehow you have tried to do the same for the new generation right now, right? You
Yes,
do that with your businesses also and with your other ventures that you have. Before we
absolutely.
talk a little bit more about your career, do you have any favorite childhood memory that you'd like to revisit again?
Childhood memory?
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't think of anything right now. It's
Okay.
such a blur. It's such a blur to me. And I guess maybe it would just be playing with friends. We lived in an
Mm,
apartment building, and there were lots of kids who lived in that building, and we would always get together and play. And
mm,
that's one of the fond memories, I have as a child, is just playing with all of the different friends in that apartment building.
mhm, mhm. And do you remember the very first friend that you made, and are you still in touch?
I am. Like, one of my neighbors is someone who I re-met here in Canada after many years.
Okay.
We reconnected, and so yes, so I do have one or two, not many,
Okay.
childhood friends who I remember who are here close by in Canada.
Okay. Okay. Tell me also, like, what kind of food do you like to experiment or cook, or what was it like within the household? What kind of food you guys were cooking?
So when I was younger, you mean when I lived at
Yeah.
home? So it
Yes.
was pretty traditional. Like, I know my mother would cook the, curries and things like that we loved
Okay.
eating back home, because, it kind of reminded you of where you came from. Our culture is very driven by food,
Hmm.
and sharing recipes, and everybody's very, they get closer together when you talk about recipes, and, oh, how do you cook this, and what do you put in your dish? So
Yeah.
those kind of things were cooked often, but we also ate North American food, like hamburgers
Okay.
and hot dogs and things like that.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
pizza, and as kids, you see the commercial on TV, and you're like, oh, can we have that? Can we go there and eat that? So it was a
Hmm.
mixture of different things.
Okay. And since you are married right now, right? Is there any
Yes.
way you are preserving that culture a little bit right now?
Absolutely, absolutely. And being in Canada, as you know, it's very multicultural. So
Hmm.
food is everywhere. And Indian food and Pakistani food, there's nothing like it in the world, right? And
Hmm.
it's so amazing. It's so flavorful. And
Absolutely.
so this is something that everybody around us, even if you're not from back home, Canadians, once their palate is open to this type of spice, they love
Hmm.
it. You know,
Hmm.
so the food is, I definitely cook it at home. My kids love it, and they cook it too. So it's something that it does keep that tradition alive. We also
Hmm.
uphold during Christmas time, because we're Catholic.
Yeah.
I remember my grandmother and my aunts. We would always get together and make these traditional sweets, for
Hmm.
Christmas, and
Yeah.
cakes and things like that. So I still try to keep those traditions alive, even though they have passed away. It kind of reminds me about them at that time of
Hmm.
year when we get together and we do this.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Now I want to like transition towards your career choices that you have made before even starting Memory Bloom. Talk a little bit about that and your experience working with these leading organizations.
I my first job, I said, I was 17 and I worked at a stockbroker and I worked there for 10 years.
Oh wow.
I'm now going to date myself. I shouldn't say how many years I worked, but
No
I kind
worries,
of
no judgment zone here, no problem.
I I grew up there. I grew up with my coworkers, kind of thing, because I was so young, and they kind of took me under their wing because I was so young, and they would always look out for me, and and tell me, what I should do, and watch out for this and watch out for that. And then, when you work in an organization, you never know. This is something that is so prevalent today is nothing is guaranteed. There's no such thing as you're set for life in an organization. You
Hmm.
never know. You could work there for 3 years and then your role is made redundant or the company closes down
Yeah.
or something happens. So you always have to be ready for your next move. That's one thing that I learned in my life. So after my role with this organization at the stockbroker, I ended up getting a job at RBC Royal Bank. I started there at the call center before the
Okay.
online banking even started,
Hmm.
and worked my way up from there. From there I went into a branch. I learned all about the products and services of banking. I learned to work with customers, and how to spot opportunities and build relationships with customers and see how I can help them. And then from there, I moved on to a head office role. So I left the branch
Hmm.
environment and moved on. So I was with RBC for 20 years. And
Oh
at
wow.
the end of that, that was the pivotal moment for me. If you ask me what was a pivotal moment in my life, it would be
Hmm.
the end of my role with this organization after 20
Hmm.
years. And my role was eliminated due to some sort of business reason.
Hmm.
And when that decision was made, I was lost. I didn't see it coming. After 20 years, I thought, wow, I'm really enjoying the ride here because I did so many different things. And I was
Hmm.
always learning and growing. So I never stayed in one department for very long. After 2 years or 3 years, I would move on to another exciting role. And because it's so big and it's global that the opportunities were endless. So
Hmm.
I was quite happy there. It was stable. I had my children. I didn't have to worry about anything. I just had to go in and do a great job. But when my role ended there,
Hmm.
I didn't know what my next move was going to be. I automatically thought, wow, I need to jump back into this pool right away and find a job at another bank because,
Hmm.
my skills are there in banking and it would be easy for me to transition into another bank
Hmm.
role. And within a month, I ended up being contacted by a recruiter and getting a job at TD Bank. It was a 3-month contract, which ended up being
Okay.
full time after a while. And I was there for about a year or two. And again, that role was eliminated. So I went on to a couple of different banks and I started to do just little short contract roles, with these organizations. And it was great because I could take time off in between the roles and kind of
Hmm.
explore who I was and what I wanted to do. By this
Hmm.
time, my sons were grown up and they started to pursue their own interests. And
Hmm.
that's when I realized that there's so much more to life now. I have kind of done my duty as a mother. What's next for me? What's next for
Hmm.
Doreen? Who is Doreen?
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
do I want to do? What would I enjoy doing? So it was a lot of
Hmm.
self discovery, self searching,
Hmm.
and really thinking about what do I want to do? What do I love to do? So that
Hmm.
was, where what kind of shifted for me and opened up things that where I am today.
Hmm. You talked about your this corporate career a little bit. Tell me, is there something, Doreen, you wish you knew before getting into this that you know now?
There's one thing that you learn is again, when we talked about when you enter school and there's different personalities, uh, different kids would kind of maybe hold you back from doing something or taunt
Hmm.
you or call you out because you're different, things like that. It's almost the same, in a corporate environment. It's just that now
Hmm.
you are grown up and you have to learn how to handle yourself. You have to learn how to manage yourself and you have to learn how to manage other people around you. What I
Mm,
learned through my corporate career is that everything and anything is possible. And you are gifted, you are talented, and you deserve to be where you are. You know,
love that.
people cannot take away your spirit.
Mm,
Although sometimes you will feel like people are holding you back, that when you're trying to apply for the next level up position,
mhm,
and you're denied that, never feel that you are not worthy. Never
mm,
feel that you have a shortcoming. Never
mhm,
feel that you do not deserve it, because you do. And when you
mhm.
start to believe that, and when you start to live that, nothing will stop you.
Yeah, I totally love that. This is again like an ongoing discussion on the podcast that we, as an immigrant, also sometimes we are kind of bogged down by those comments or those
Yes.
people, all kinds of things that come your way, right? But we are here for different purposes. We are
Mhm.
not here to really brew the negativity and give it back to them. No, we are here for ourselves and for our personal growth. And
Mhm.
within that corporate setting, sometimes you really have to ignore those and keep on focusing on your own goal, right? Otherwise it really like pulls you down, and you start basically start questioning your own self, like, am I even good enough to even be here
Mhm.
anymore or not?
Exactly, exactly. You
Yeah.
know, always believe in yourself, and always be positive. You know,
Mm,
sometimes it's very easy to get negative when things are not going your way, or you're
absolutely.
working on a challenging project, or things are happening at home. You know, whatever you do is, when you come into the work environment, always put your best foot forward. You know,
Mm,
dress your best, speak your best, do your best, and
mm,
apply yourself the best way that you can. And don't let other people get in your way. You know, stand up for
yeah.
yourself, believe in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely back that. You also talked briefly about, your layoff very initially when you worked with RBC. Tell me, since we are sort of in the season of layoffs, we see that all the time on LinkedIn, people are just getting laid off here and there. What would you say was that something that kept you motivated, or something that didn't make you question yourself a lot? Because it's very normal to get into that imposter syndrome pit, very
Yes.
easily. So how did you pull yourself out of that?
You know, it was really difficult. I have to say, it was really
Mm,
difficult because I didn't see it coming. And I just assumed that, oh, after 20 years, I'll just keep going. And when
mm,
it did happen, it was like hitting into a wall, and you're so stunned, you know? And it was not easy. It took a long time for me to get out of that mindset,
mm,
because I was scared, I was nervous, I felt horrible.
mm,
I really did feel like I had reached the end of my rope. Like, what am I going to
mm,
do now? What got me through it are my friends and family around me. They were like
mm,
the cheerleaders that kept pushing me to go forward. It's like, you can do this, something great is going to happen. And I remember meeting this gentleman at a family party. I didn't know who he
okay.
was. He was a friend of someone who was hosting the party. And he said to me, you know what? This is your opportunity to do whatever you want to do. He said, if there
Yeah.
was one thing that you could do, what would it be? And I couldn't answer that question because I never thought about it, right? I was so focused just on working where I was, and I had never had to think about it. So
Mm,
it took some time for me to really sit down and think, like, what would I do? And he
mhm,
says, Don't hold back. Just, even if it's the craziest thought and it's the craziest notion, write it down.
mhm,
Nobody's going to watch what you're writing down. It's just you and that piece of paper. Write
mhm,
down anything. If money was no object, what would you do?
mm,
That is what got me thinking, Gurasis.
mm.
That I stared at that blank piece of paper for hours, and I thought, what
Oh,
am I going to
wow.
write? And then slowly three things popped up on that piece of paper. And as crazy as it sounded, I took it and I ran with it, and I'm making it
Mm,
work today.
mm. I think that would be a great segue to talk about Memory Bloom, because that's where you discovered, Memory Bloom, and you started working on it. Please,
Yes.
tell our listeners about that as well.
So one of the three things on my piece of paper was writing. The other two was travel and photography. I love to travel, and I
Mhm,
had a hobby in photography, and I would take a lot of photos on my travel. And then, somebody suggested to me, well, the same gentleman said, you should start a blog a travel
Mhm.
blog. And at that time, I thought, what's a blog? I don't even know how to set one up. And then a friend of mine had helped me set up this travel blog. And I started writing a lot about the places that I had visited, and I realized that I love to write, that I didn't even realize how much I love to write about it. So I started to
Mm.
do more writing, and I started to post like little poems, little short stories, little short muses. I started to post a lot of this on Facebook. When somebody had I had worked with many years ago at the bank saw this, and she says, "Hey, I see that you're doing some writing. I need to ask you a favor."
Mhm.
And I said, "Sure." So we ended up having a conversation, and she asked me to write her mother's story.
Mhm.
And that was the first book that I wrote. And her name was Satya, her mother
Mhm.
who had passed away. I communicated with her father, who lives in Nova Scotia.
Mhm.
And I got all this information about this beautiful woman who was no longer with us.
Mm.
And he was so open with me because I was a stranger. And he opened up his heart and poured out his soul to me. And he talked about the love that he had for his wife and how much
Mm.
he missed his wife and what she meant to him and what she meant to their family.
Yeah.
And he sent me photographs of her from when she was a young girl all the way up until she had passed. He talked about their travel together, about when they first moved to Canada from India, and they were the first brown family in this little small town in Nova
No
Scotia,
Scotia. Yeah.
and how she had set up her own business, which was quite a brave step to take, So I ended up writing her story, and if you
Mm.
wouldn't mind, I'll share it. This is what it was. It was
Absolutely.
Satya's
Oh, okay.
story, and in it is, photographs and all about their life together, their children, and I ended up writing the story. As you can see, I made it into a book, and he was
Yeah.
so happy with this project, that he came to Toronto, where I live, and came to my home with this bouquet of flowers. And he sat in my living room and he just cried, and he said that you didn't just write my wife's story, you brought my wife back to me.
Oh,
And when he
wow.
said those words, Gurasis, I just had this moment of, wow, this is what I want to do. I did not
Yeah.
realize the impact that would have on a person and their family is to have their story told, to have their legacy move down through the generations, through children, grandchildren, great grandchildren. Some of her grandchildren were born after she passed away. So this was a beautiful way for them to get to know their grandmother.
Mm.
And that's when I decided to form Memory Bloom, is to remember to, your memories are everything that you have. Nobody can take your memories away from you. That is one
Yeah.
thing that you possess, and it's just yours for you.
Yeah.
And no matter what, people can take your clothes, people can take your money, your home, your car, whatever, but they cannot take your memories away. And I wanted to keep that memory alive. So
Mhm.
Memory Bloom was formed, and since then I have written a few stories for many families, and I just keep going and keep growing with it.
Yeah, and I think I also read when I read this story. Of course, this is mind blowing in itself. It just makes you. It's actually like a testimony that how powerful the stories are. How
Hmm.
powerful they are, and what kind of impact it can last on people. And like you just said, their grandchildren are reading it, their children are reading it. It's
Right.
incredible. And I read that after that, when he said that, you said that these words definitely shook you, when he said that you have actually brought my wife back into life. That's
Yes.
amazing just to hear that. I
Yes.
don't know how you would be even feeling at that
Yes.
moment, that, oh my god, like what have I done, and what he's saying to me. Tell me about that
Exactly.
moment a little bit. How
I
was
I
it
had
that you
no idea. I was not prepared. I was not prepared
Hmm.
for that moment. This was just like a project I took on because this
Mhm.
coworker, I worked with her like many years ago at the bank, and if she, it's funny how the universe works. How God
Yeah.
will direct you into a certain way, because if she had not seen my posts, maybe it would not have happened, but it happened for a reason. And one
Mhm.
thing led to another, and it just kind of kept going from there.
Yeah. Even like today, we are able to sit together and have this conversation is because those dots were connected. Somehow you saw that post, Miguel's post, and we
Yes,
connected and we talk. It's amazing, how
yes.
beautiful, how basically the things unfolds. I'm such a fan of how all this is working even.
Me too, me too. And uh, people's lives come together, for a reason. And here we are
Yeah.
today, exploring different things. And since Memory Bloom, and then COVID hit, and COVID kind of changed things a little bit for Memory Bloom.
Hmm.
Because of my corporate experience, I've also added corporate writing into Memory Bloom services. So I work for businesses as well. Anything that a business needs to have written, documented. I do some training as well,
Hmm.
because those are all things that I did in my past life in with the banks. And I'm really proud of my skills and my experience, and I want to keep going with it. I've
Yeah.
also added career coaching to Memory Bloom as well, because for a while during COVID and after COVID, I focused a lot on helping people to get jobs, because
Hmm.
I went through it in my career, and I know how what you must do to put one foot in front of the other. How do you network? How do you have an amazing resume? What is attracted to what is attracting to hiring managers? How do you pass a great interview? Because I've been through it for so many years. So I was
Hmm.
coaching a lot around that as well. And it's been amazing, because through LinkedIn I've met people like you, people all over the world actually. It's quite
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. And you talked about coaching, and I would like to read few of the reviews with the people you have worked with for my listeners. I love them. I said I'd like to share that. And one of the people you worked with, she said that to me, Doreen was an angel, a lifesaver, an inspiration who changed my world in the most positive way. Her voice resonated with me as a beacon of positivity, guiding my thoughts with realistic optimism. It's amazing, right?
Wow.
How much you have impacted that person's life.
Mhm. And this is what keeps me going, right? This is what I love about what I'm doing. It's not a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 corporate environment. It's what I do is my own time. It's flexible. But what gives me the most joy to keep going is impacting people's lives, whether it's writing a story or helping a business owner, with their whatever it is that they want to do, or helping people to find a job. These are important things that I like to share with people. And it's, to me, I
Mhm.
find it so rewarding.
Yeah. I would like to read another reviews I read. I just want to highlight those because I just love them. This one person said that a few words casually shared with Doreen, and she has transformed that into a story and a vision. This line itself is just amazing. Another
Oh,
person said that her story that she wrote showcased the celebration of our community. It allowed me to relive the evening through her words. And then another person said she can put the customer at ease and has this magical way to create the content for a wide and diverse range of businesses. That is incredible, Doreen.
thank
Kudos
you
to
so
you.
much. Thank you for reading those out. I know who those people are, and I'm so grateful,
Yeah.
for people who take the time to provide these testimonies. And it's
Yeah.
really important, and I think we need to do more of that in our everyday lives. Is to thank people, even if it's a little thing. Whether you smile at someone, or you buy someone a coffee, or you give someone advice or directions of how to get to someone somewhere.
Mhm.
Thank you, and say something nice about those people, because those nice things are so uplifting. Because
Yeah.
life is hard, we go through so many ups and downs and challenges. We need to hear those positive things.
Absolutely. I always say that out of all the negativity that you see on social media, even this one person, in my case especially, I'm not that popular yet, but if even this one person reaches out to me on LinkedIn, they take out their time and listen to the podcast and give me their feedback.
Yeah.
I am extremely thankful to them. I really, really appreciate if
Yes.
anybody reaches out to me. And on that note, if anybody, any of my listeners would like to reach out to you, Doreen, if they want to use your services, for example, just want to have a coffee chat with you because you're amazing. Tell
I'd
me where
love
they can connect with you.
Well, you can check my website, which is memorybloom.ca, or you can even find me on LinkedIn, Doreen Fernandez. Connect with me on LinkedIn or my through my website. I'll be happy to chat further and see what we can do together.
Yeah, and to all my listeners, I'll put the links to that in the show notes. So, Doreen, tell me, when you think about the legacy you want to leave behind, what do you hope people will remember most about you?
Oh wow, you're asking some really good questions. When I think about my legacy, I think about my sons. I have two sons, and
Hmm.
it's been my life's mission to be the best mom that I can be, to set them up for success. I
Hmm.
want them to learn that, life is going to be hard, but you can get through this.
Hmm.
Be the best that you can be, help other people along the way, do good for your family, friends, and people in your community. And these are all things that I strive to do even today.
Hmm.
I do a lot of work with nonprofit organizations. I volunteer my time with them to help other people, whether it's career coaching, any type of mentorship. I also
Hmm.
mentor many newcomers who come to Canada who need some advice. And I see the fear in their face. I see the uncertainty, and I always want to make people feel comfortable. That's just me.
Hmm.
That is my spirit, is to nurture others. And that's the legacy that I want to leave behind, is so that my sons will know who their mother was, and they will carry that forward and continue the good work.
Wow, I think you're definitely on that track, and more power to you.
Thank you.
So, this next segment, Doreen, is something I've added new in this season. I call it Know Your Host, where I ask my guests to ask me any question they might have.
Oh, so now it's my turn to ask you.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can
Okay.
ask me any question you have. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about where you came from. Like, what were your surroundings? When did you come to Canada? How long have you been in Canada?
So, I came to Canada in 2018, almost 6 years ago,
Okay.
from this northwestern part of India with a state called Punjab. And the city I come from is called Amritsar. It's also called Guru Ki Nagri. It's also the place for the Golden Temple, one of the biggest Sikh pilgrimage.
Mhm.
So my upbringing was very much, I will say, like sheltered, and I'm the youngest of all my siblings. I have two sisters, and I lived in a very loving and cheerful household. And I say that because I grew up with 15 people living together in a house. It was a
Oh, wow.
joint family. So I think I never even felt the need to have any friends outside the house because I already had so many cousins of mine, and every month there's like a some or the other celebration, or somebody's anniversary is there, somebody's birthday is there. It's like that kind of atmosphere basically I came from, and at the same time it was very, very like business focused. I feel like my life was also sort of written, like, okay, I'll finish my studies, I'll probably do my bachelor's in commerce, and I'll join my father's business. That was
Mhm.
my idea. But surprisingly how life works, I think I finished my 12th grade somehow, and before that, actually, I was basically sent by my school to attend this one workshop in Mumbai. It was like a journalism workshop, and that time I was a science student. But when I came, I think that particular workshop just changed my worldview, or just basically shifted something in me. I was like, oh my god, I think I'm not made for science. I'm made for something else. So because in that particular workshop, it was all about filmmaking, it was about anchoring. I also was the one of the youngest people out of the lot, and I also was selected to do anchoring for a national television channel at that point. So
Mhm.
I mean, imagine like you were just 15, you are in a room where there's a chroma behind you, there's a producer, there's a director, and it kind of like boosted the ego of like a 15-year-old, right? So I
Mhm.
think that really shifted something in me, and then eventually I decided to take my own path. I got into bachelor's in journalism and mass communication, and from there, eventually I never honestly had this thought of coming abroad, never had this thought of moving abroad. but destiny brought me here, and here I am 6 years later.
Wow,
Finished my program in media strategies and advertising, then end up working in pharmaceutical advertising, and along with that, I'm doing this podcast today. Yeah,
fantastic. So somehow you found this new path and you realize that you love it and you want to keep
absolutely.
going. You're an amazing host, and I can see that you love to do this. So what is next for you? Where do you want to go next?
I remember having this brief discussion with you earlier also, that I want to make this podcast like a go to resource for people, any immigrants who are coming to Canada. This will be like a go to platform for them. uh, Definitely, I want to make it more professional. I want to get a studio for sure at some point. I have so many ideas in terms of how I can really drive these conversations, because it's not limited to bringing out those stories. There is so much beyond that also that I can leverage and
Mhm.
actually showcase out to the world, and I would love to maybe one day host another talk show, where I can invite people just like yourself and have like a fun conversation, have those games, and just entertain people. I would love to do that also at some point in my life. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think you're pretty much on your way there. And sometimes some things will happen in our lives to change that direction. And I think
Hmm.
right now, based on our conversation the other day, you are also at a crossroads where, and I think it's pushing you to say, okay, Gurasis, come here, come here. This is where you should be. And I think it's going to
Absolutely.
happen.
Yeah.
It's already happening for you. So I'm happy about that. You just got to keep going. And I think also meeting the right people who can help you, who can take you by the hand and say,
Hmm.
come with me, I'm going to help get you there. That is going
Hmm.
to be life changing for you as well. Because that's one thing that I've learned
Definitely.
is you can't do a lot alone. You can,
Hmm.
maybe, but it's harder and it takes you longer. But if you can meet with someone or collaborate someone with someone to say, I can help you, it just kind of two minds work better than one, and you go
Hmm.
faster and you go further.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's my hope for you. And if my question to you is, how can I help you?
I just want to add to that what you just said. When I came to Canada, I definitely learned to be independent.
Mm,
But at the same time, I think I also learned, like you just said, I can't do things alone. I also learned the being codependent. It's very underrated.
mhm.
It's so important to really leverage the other people's resources who are kind of like further
Yes,
ahead in their journeys, or
yes,
something that you cannot do. Like, for example, something I read on your website or something that you do, you said that those businesses are best at doing businesses, not creating those programs, which you help create those programs, right? So
yes,
that
yes.
is definitely something at any point, if I am ready to expand my podcast, do something else, I think you'll definitely be my go-to person, if anything
Oh,
I have in my mind. Yeah.
that'd be fantastic. That really would be.
Okay. Thank you so much for the questions. I love them. So, but now I think it's your turn. I'm going to get into the final segment of the podcast. I call it Beneath the Accent, where I'm going to ask a couple of questions. You can answer them in one word or a sentence or howsoever you feel like. The idea is just to know a little bit more about you. So, what advice would you give to your younger self, and at what age?
Oh, is not be afraid. Not be
Hmm.
afraid. Just kind of embrace whatever is happening around you and know that you can conquer it and you can get through it.
Okay, love that. What's your go to comfort food?
Oh, again, it depends on my mood. Usually, it's Indian food because I grew up with it and I love it. Or I should say
Hmm.
Pakistani food, which is kind of similar in some ways. But then I
Yeah.
also like pizza. So
Hmm. Who
yeah,
doesn't?
who
Who
doesn't,
doesn't love?
right?
Do you have any hidden talents?
Oh, I don't know about how much is hidden. When I was younger, I was taking piano lessons. And I went
Hmm.
up until I think grade 4, grade 5, but then I had to stop due to situations that my life at the time, and then I never went back to it. But
Hmm.
I kind of do. That's one of my regrets is not following through with that. But
Hmm.
there's that, and then just I do like to cook as well.
Hmm.
So I'm not a great cook, but I do like to cook and experiment and try different things. And
Hmm.
my writing, I'm always inspired by people's stories, and this is what drives me to do
Mm-hmm.
more of the legacy writing in people.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I never even knew I had,
Mm-hmm.
but I just try my best and put my heart and soul into it, and
Mm-hmm.
it just is. It feels so good when I have the story done for someone.
Yeah. What about chocolate? You don't
Oh
like baking?
my gosh, you hit my weak spot. Chocolate is everything to me. I love chocolate.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm,
Chocolate comes first.
okay. Any best piece of advice that someone ever gave you?
People are always giving me advice. Oh, and that's another good point to note is sometimes, when you're looking for advice, and if you ask 10 different people the question, you will get 10 different answers.
Hmm.
What I have recently learned is, take the advice, listen to what people have to say to you, but only pick the right things that suit you.
Hmm.
Don't do everything that everybody's telling you, because it's going to drive you
Absolutely.
crazy and it's going to overwhelm you. So listen to what they have to say and just pick one or two things that really make sense to you. And that's the piece of advice that somebody gave me
Hmm. Love that.
recently,
Yeah.
as recent as just a couple of months ago.
Okay.
The best piece of advice is listen, but do what feels right for you.
Yeah. Okay. If you could describe yourself as any creature, what would it be?
Oh, any creature. I would have to say I love horses and dolphins. For some reason, I don't
Okay.
know. I'm just in love with those two animals. And
Okay.
yeah, that's how I would describe myself, as having that kind of a spirit.
Okay. So, who's your go to person now?
I have a really good network of people who, some of them I've met through LinkedIn,
Hmm.
some very close friends and family. So they are who I go to for, if it's business advice, somebody who is, I go to people who are level headed.
Hmm.
Because sometimes I want to do everything and I want to do it really fast, and I'm not patient. I'm really impatient, and I want to get things done. And uh, I'm really bad with technology. Technology does not work with me. So I always go to people who calm me, people who are very
Hmm.
have a very steady sense of, being. Those are the people who I go to for help.
Okay. Is there something you recently bought and you now regret?
I try not to. I try not to spend too much money, but there's always things, like this online shopping is really,
Hmm.
really uh, addictive, and you tend to buy something online, and then it doesn't look good when it comes in the mail, or, it doesn't fit right. So those are things that I regret doing. Yes.
Okay. What's the most expensive thing you would like to own?
If I could just travel everywhere forever, that's what I would like to do. That's where I would spend my money, is travel.
Hmm. So, like free tickets.
Free tickets, yes.
Okay. What's that one Canadian tradition that you have adopted wholeheartedly and something that you have introduced to Canadians?
The one thing that I can say that I've adopted from Canada is Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
It's become an
Yeah.
annual tradition now, where we get together with family, and you cook the turkey and you have all the trimmings, and it's more about really using that day to be thankful for everything in your life, your health, your
Hmm.
loved ones. And I love, we've had this family tradition where we rent cottages up on Rice Lake,
Hmm.
which is close by,
Hmm.
not too far from where I live. And we've been doing this. We've been renting these cottages for the past maybe over 20 years, even
Oh,
25
wow.
years. Yeah. And we go there every Thanksgiving for that long weekend, and we take up the turkey and we spend time with each other. We roast marshmallows out on the fire pit. We
Hmm.
sing songs. We tell stories. We
Wow.
just
Sounds
talk. We
fun.
talk, and
Yeah.
this has become so meaningful. And we all look forward to it every year. And it's really, we take time to really give thanks for everything great in our lives. And that's
Hmm.
something that I love to pass on to other people as well is always take time to be thankful, because no matter how hard life can seem sometimes, there's always something to be grateful for.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Do you have any favorite Canadian slang or a phrase?
Oh, you know what? I know we say the word a lot. It's
Hey,
like, hey,
yeah.
a.
Can,
So
can you
that
use it in a sentence?
it's like, how's your day, eh?
I love that.
So yeah, I mean, there's you get caught up in these buzzwords too. Like buzzwords
Mm,
are used all the time, like optimize and uh, I'm trying to think of words right now, but they're not coming to me. But it becomes part of your language, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. Okay. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Superpower. Oh my gosh, like staying on a diet. If I could stay on a diet and exercise, that would be the superpower that I would want to have.
Okay. If you could create this one law that everybody has to follow, what would it be?
Just to accept people, accept people for who they
Hmm.
are and really help people. Seriously, I talk a lot about this on LinkedIn and my posts is to
Yeah.
support people, help people. If you see someone who's struggling, go up to them and say, how can I help you? I always ask that question of people that I meet is, how can I help you? Because I am so grateful for people who have helped me. And
Hmm.
I wouldn't be where I am today if people didn't reach out to me and say, Doreen, how can I help you with this? Because when you're starting a business, when you're running a business, there's a lot at play. How to set up your business, your logo, your
Hmm.
brand, your everything that you need to do to get your business and be recognized and raise your awareness. It's not just you alone. There's just so many people who rally around you to help you. So
Yeah.
those are the people who I'm grateful for in my life is help other people, give back and
Hmm.
carry forward what other people have done for you.
Yeah. Okay. How would you describe Canada in one word or a sentence?
Oh, Canada is gosh, it's just so many things. The one word that came to mind right off the bat is beautiful.
Hmm.
That's the way, and I would describe it beautiful in terms of not just the landscape, the geography of it, the beautiful lakes and the mountains, and it's just so beautiful. But it's also beautiful for the multiculturalism. Like I know it's not always rosy. It's not always you know what's the word, milk and honey. The land of milk and honey
Hmm.
is what people always use, but we have to make it that way. We have to make it that way. So
Hmm.
I always encourage, like, if I come across a newcomer who's coming to Canada, it's like, you know what? Give of yourself to make it better. Don't expect things to be done for you. Don't expect things to be handed to you because we all went through that and you got to give just as much as you receive.
Absolutely. Well, I think you have articulated it perfectly. I love that. So, finally, if you could leave me, Doreen, with one piece of advice, what would it be?
Gurasis, I would say don't stop, just keep going. Honestly, because the minute you stop, then you fail.
Hmm.
So don't stop, just keep going. Even though sometimes you will reach crossroad in your life, it's okay. It's
Absolutely.
part of living, right? Take a break, take a
Hmm.
breather. Sometimes we need to take a breather. And maybe that's something that we don't do very often is you have to
Hmm.
stop, you have to take a breath, look around you and see the good things around you, see the good people
Hmm.
around you. And I always say when you give and when you help other people, you automatically get lifted up yourself. So those are two things that I would say to you instead of one, keep going and keep giving.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And finally, how would you describe your experience of being on the podcast today?
Oh, you know what? It was really refreshing. I love your questions. We had not rehearsed any of this. I didn't know
Yeah.
what questions you were going to ask me, but you got me thinking and even going back into my memory, which, you don't tend to think about these things every day, but you really made me
Yeah.
go back and think about things. And I think there's a lot of self realization that comes along with digging back into your memory as well, because you're reminded of where you came from and all of the things that you have overcome. I recently did a post on LinkedIn. It's called "I Am Remarkable,"
Remarkable. Yes.
because
Yeah.
I attended a workshop by this gentleman and whose name escapes me right now, and I feel really bad about that. But it's IamRemarkable.org, and he reminded me and others on the workshop as well that you have to know why you are remarkable, and really appreciate your skills, your strengths, and even the challenges that you have overcome, because we tend to dismiss them. We tend to say, okay, I got to get through this, get over this hurdle, and then I'll be fine. But that
Mm.
process of getting over that hurdle is what makes you remarkable. And it gave me a real good appreciation to listen to other people's stories. Some of them are really hard, like, if you think you're having a bad time, believe me, other people may be having even a worse time. So those are good
Absolutely.
reminders for you to remind yourself about that. Life is about just living and accepting and being.
I love that. Life is about living and accepting and being. On that note, thank you so much, Doreen, for being on the podcast and adding value to me and to my listeners. Thank you.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, Gurasis. And I hope, if whoever's watching this podcast finds inspiration, finds hope, and know that there's help and you're not alone.
Absolutely. Love that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.